4 of the UK's biggest house builders are being investigated for mis-selling leaseholds and unfair contracts on new build homes. Barratt Developments, Countryside Properties, Persimmon Homes and Taylor Wimpey are all facing action by the Competition and Markets Authority. Well, we've been reporting for years here on You and Yours how homeowners have felt misled when they bought their house because they didn't understand the leasehold terms. Some have ground rents doubling every decade, and banks and mortgage companies now refuse to lend against them. Billy Martins is from Bolton. His contract says he must pay ground rent of £250 a year, which doubles every 10 years.
I purchased my flat in April 2010. Taylor Wimpey advertised it on a Help to Buy, affordable, local people. The ground rent was £250 per year for 125 years of a lease. So it stated, and so the sales lady stated. I since found out that it doubles every 10 years and it caps off in the 50th year. £8,000 at the end of it per year, the leases and the service charges and the permission fees and the estate management fees. It no longer becomes affordable. I've been quoted to extend my lease on a doubling between £25,000 and £35,000. Taylor Wimpey has said they want to help. It's no help, even if the Taylor Wimpey offer to RPI. I'm on a Help to Buy as well. I'm jumping out of one frying pan and jumping into the fire. If I sign this Taylor Wimpey deal, I've had to change jobs to earn more money to make sure that I can keep up with my payments. But there's only so many hours you can work in a day. You've got more rights buying an apple from the supermarket.
Billy Martins. Well, George Lusty is Senior Director for Consumer Protection at the Competition and Markets Authority. George Lusty, what are the breaches of consumer law that you've found?
So we have to talk about potential breaches because only a court can decide if they are or not. But that said, we've identified some really serious concerns that trouble us deeply. The things that we've heard about are, the example that Billy's just given of ground rent escalators, where the ground rent doubles every 10 years or sometimes every 20 years, making those payments unaffordable. But also people misled about what they were buying, told that they were buying a freehold home, misled about how much it might cost to buy the freehold, and using unfair sales tactics or pressuring people into purchasing.
And whose responsibility is it to tell them? Because presumably these people have solicitors.
That's right. Solicitors do play an important role and they need to advise their clients properly about what they're signing up for. But it's also the responsibility of firms like the developers to use fair contract terms and not to engage in sharp practices when selling properties. It's a huge expenditure. It's the biggest thing that any of us will buy in our lives, and they've got to treat people fairly.
Now, some people have found, for example, they have to pay massive fees to extend their property or make improvements. What did you find there?
So we reported back on these back in February. That's not the subject of the action that we're taking now, which is focusing on the ground rent charges and mis-selling. But we have published advice today, including some videos and pointing people to sources of support like the Leasehold Advisory Service.
Now, sometimes the freeholds of these properties were sold onto third-party companies. What could the CMA do about that? Because that clearly complicates the whole thing.
It does, and in some cases we'll be investigating those firms as well because they are continuing to use and rely on the same unfair contract terms. But the cases that we're particularly focusing on today are the developers. They're the ones who we say have put some of these potentially unfair terms into the market and are responsible for them. And we want to see them change so that people can sell their homes and get mortgages. George,
why has this taken so long to investigate? We've been reporting on this for over a decade. I've seemed to have done this many times.
We completely get the urgency of this matter and how much of a devastating impact it's having on the people concerned. We've worked really hard since we published our report in February. We've been going out to talk to people affected, to MPs and their constituents, to the campaign groups to get these cases moving. They're a priority for us and we'll try and take them forward as quickly as we can.
And what do you require these companies to do then? Now, what's the next step?
So ultimately, if we are successful in establishing that they are unfair contract terms and that misleading practices have been used, they need to put the position right. They need to get rid of unfair contract terms, stop relying on them, and fix the problem with the mis-selling.
George Lusty, we may well be back to you at some time from the Competition and Markets Authority.